go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Assembly Enterprise and Utility Oversight Committee of the whole meeting. Today's February 20, 2020. We're noticed here from 11 a.m. to noon. Let's go ahead and start with introductions. Mr. Dunbar.
Forrest Dunbar.
Crystal Kennedy. Nick Zalato.
Felix Rivera. Christopher Constant.
Suzanne LaFrance.
Mark Stafford.
Mike Rhodes.
Heidi Comerson.
Who's the CFO?
For Solid Waste Services.
Mark, Alex Lipka, Chief Fiscal.
I'm Dean Geese, Council.
Desiree Camacho, Assembly Budget Analyst.
Model Solid Waste.
Susanna Caldwell, Solid Waste Services.
And in the very back. Okay,
And you forgive me, Eugene Carl Haberman. I do exist here.
Thank you, Mr. Haberman. Okay, everyone should have a copy of the agenda, and there are some handouts in back as well. A copy of the AO and AM are on their way for that pertaining to item 3. So, any comments on the agenda from any members? Okay then, item 3, new business. AO 2020-15, an ordinance approving and authorizing modifications made to Solid Waste Services Integrated Solid Waste Master Plan, SWS. We will have a presentation by the folks from SWS. And Mr. Constant,
Yep.
do you have some comments?
Thank you. First, I apologize. I have to leave at 1:15 for another engagement, but the item was pulled from the agenda to have this discussion because we have a number of items moving forward in solid waste services in relationship to the transfer station redevelopment, the waste to energy feasibility study, the new construction to repair the building or replace the building that was destroyed in the earthquake. And so several members had asked that we have a briefing in context so we can kind of talk about all these pieces and see how they fit together as we move forward with the acceptance or adoption of the master plan so that we all are seeing all the pieces together. And so with that, this is kind of the genesis of that conversation, and we're here to hear from solid waste.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Constant. You want to take it from here?
Yeah, and I'll let Mike Rhodes, who's our acting manager of engineering and planning, kind of take over from here, and then, of course, ask questions as necessary as we go along. So, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so for the updates on the solid waste master plan, there wasn't a whole lot that we added to it. There were just three items in addition to the master plan that was authorized and approved by the Assembly in 2018. The 2018 master plan that was approved was an update from a 1985 version of that was from the original construction of the landfill and the utility was first starting up. Most of the items in that original one have been completed by the time we started the new master plan in 2018. Since that original plan was adopted, a few things have come to light. One of them being our earthquake, which caused some pretty severe damage out of the landfill. So on the update to the master plan, we've included the landfill shop and admin building replacement, a materials recovery facility feasibility study, and our waste to energy pre-feasibility study. And I'll go into each of those items here. So the main shop it was constructed in 1987, concrete masonry unit construction, basically built to seismic codes from the 80s. It didn't hold up with the loading that we had from this recent earthquake. We're just now getting our designers on board to replace that building. That pink tag there, or that red tag, I should say. It's faded. It's basically white at this point. So our guys are definitely in need of getting back indoors. So yeah, that's been a long process, and we're finally moving forward with it. We wanted to include it on the master plan just to summarize our findings that we've year between us and FEMA.
And basically, it was either right when the master plan was approved in 2018. I mean, literally, like the earthquake happened, a week or two right before that, and so it just missed, the adoption of the master plan by the assembly at that time. So, go ahead.
So based on the policies from FEMA and federal guidelines, they have a rule to where if you have your construction estimate for replacement of the building versus repair, if your repair is 50% plus $1 of replacing the building, it puts you into just a straight replacement. So we're working with FEMA now to get that determination through, but we put together all the estimates required, everything that's required verbally from FEMA and in compliance with their guidelines, and we're moving forward with the assumption that we're replacing that building. The schedule for that is last fall we put out an RFP for the architectural engineering. We're getting the contract signed hopefully today, definitely by the end of the week. The next step will be hiring a construction manager at risk, similar to the route we're taking on the transfer station, to try to get a contractor on board to expedite the design process, get permitting packages out early, and try to get our maintenance employees back inside. Hoping to complete that project next spring. In addition to that project, we added the MRF study to the master plan. That included basically just an overview of the existing recycling in South Central Alaska, obviously including Anchorage, and provided a few different scenarios on what a full-blown sorting facility would look like, and the economic impact would be, what revenues would look like, and just a basic overview of that.
Did you want to add anything to that, Susanna?
Yeah, I would just say we asked for this study as we were working through the new Central Transfer Station project. As you know, we're relocating the existing facility across the street, so we will have existing infrastructure on where we are at currently. And so we're trying to develop new recycling at the current facility that we're operating at once we're able to move over and have all of our trash happening across the street.
Yeah.
And so one thing we wanted to look at was the materials recovery facility. These are used with commingled recycling. Right now, all the commingled recycling that we have, it gets baled and shipped out to Tacoma, where it's then sorted at facilities down in the lower 48, and then it ultimately gets sent to manufacturers to produce new recycled products. With that, we end up shipping a little bit of trash. There is always contamination, right, in your commingled recycling. And so we wanted to see, would it be worthwhile to consider a materials recovery facility here in town? That way we're not shipping our trash basically down to the lower 48. Traditionally, it's been considered that a materials recovery facility is not feasible here in Anchorage just because we have a small amount of feedstock from just the general waste stream, and also just the overall costs of having a facility like this. However, recycling markets are changing rapidly, and also the technology surrounding material recovery facilities are changing very rapidly, and so we just wanted to take a stab at that question of whether or not it was something we should consider on the new site.
Madam Chair, briefly, just Mr. Wellington wanted to note he's on the phone.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We have a question from Ms. Zillitel.
Yeah, I think this is probably for Ms. Caldwell. What else, or what's the timing of this in coordination with the Central Transfer Station kind of redesign? Because we know that that's moving forward. And do you know what else you're going to look at for the site should this not be, are we going to look at any other feasibility for the site other than just materials recovery?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, right now we're looking at moving the Central Transfer Station current operations to the new site. And so we're going to look at taking the existing site and turning it into a resource recovery campus, right? And at the bare minimum, there will be some sort of recycling happening, whether that's just the traditional sort of commodities recycling that we're currently doing. But then it gives us also the flexibility to potentially potentially pursue a project like this.
And has this started at all? Has this feasibility study started at all? Has it gone down any path other than you want to do it?
We conducted the feasibility study.
Oh, we have the study.
Yeah, which is included in the master plan now. So, so we have done that. And so that's the first step, right, in terms of whether we should consider something like this. So, yeah.
Okay, I will look it up and read it. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Elba.
Okay.
Okay, so the other item that we added to the master plan was a waste to energy alternatives analysis. And the original master plan that we put together in 2018, it covered the different types of technologies available. We went a little further than that and put together a white paper that discussed the different technologies, the feasibility of those technologies, and ultimately we ended up choosing mass incineration as the preferred alternative. Mark, maybe you can talk a little bit more.
Yeah,
about
this is
the
basically
reason for
this is the rehash from the pre-feasibility study that we presented a couple times. And I just wanted to update everybody that we plan on next month presenting the feasibility study that we talked about in January, which is basically that waste to energy roadmap that's going to answer a lot of the questions that I'm guessing you have had, as well as a lot of your constituents. But we're doing that next month, and I think we pretty much have the whole meeting next month as well to discuss waste to energy and what the results of the feasibility study.
Mr. Constant and then Ms. Zolotel?
For next month, do you think an hour is enough to go over the entire plan?
No.
So for the
No.
purposes of good planning, we might either have a work session or expand that meeting.
Plus, I'd like to give an update on where we're at with the transfer station as well, as far as design, and we've got a virtual reality tour we want to give everybody to see what it's going to look like inside. So,
Mr. Stafford, how many hours do you think you would need
hopefully not more than 2.
total?
Yeah.
Thanks.
But it would be nice to know, just so I can schedule our consultants, like if we're going to do it on Thursday or Friday, to make sure that they book their travel arrangements accordingly.
Thank you. Ms. Zolotel?
Thanks. I have 2 questions. One, is it possible before you present it, or I guess consider if we could read it, so
Yeah.
that we could come with questions kind of preloaded to make the most of the time of the consultant being available? And 2, in terms of timing with the update to the master plan, would you want to potentially wait until that is done and update the master plan with that information included versus that you are just conducting, or that there is a waste energy feasibility study in progress, so that you're not coming back again for potentially another update to your master plan? Because this is a significant update.
That's a good question.
Maybe I'll
I mean, I don't think we need to wait. I guess we could include the results from the roadmap within the master plan. I guess that's what you're asking, correct? Like, just include the results from whatever the presentation is in March within a final version of the master plan. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, but I guess the question is would you want to then update again your master plan if we do it now to include that, once it's available, so that you're not having successive amendments is kind of what I'm looking
Yeah,
at.
I mean, I guess that's a great idea. I don't think there's any issue with pushing this off until after we have that meeting, because I think what I'm hoping to get at that meeting is kind of some guidance from the body about what do you want us to do moving forward with respect to waste to energy, because it might be we don't want you to do anything, and so that would substantially change the direction of the master plan, for instance. So maybe that is a good idea to wait until March, until after we have that meeting.
I'm going to disagree with Mr. Spafford. Kind of one of the purposes of getting the master plan isn't in and of itself meant to be a concise capture of everything that you're doing. It's meant to give you a broad idea of where they're going to go. And so what they're really telling you is, A, they're going to go down this road, but if you have any more chances to ask questions relative to waste energy, the important thing about getting the master plan approved and updated is it gives the municipality some flexibility in regards to the process we're going through for the replacement of the building at the landfill. That, you know, can we or can we not get FEMA money? But with an updated master plan, we can use our borrowing facility to borrow for that rebuild as opposed to having to take the money straight out of the fund balance. So that's one of the real purposes of getting the master plan updated is to give that flexibility.
Thank you, Mr. Slocum. Ms. Zolotow?
Yeah, it was a follow-up on that then. I totally get why we need to update that. It would be my preference, because we're gonna come to at least the start of a decision point on waste to energy is to hold that portion in the master plan until later, because it doesn't make a ton of sense to say we're gonna update the master plan, we're doing this feasibility study, but then right after we're at a point where we could significantly shift what's in the master plan based on whatever that feasibility study says and what the direction the body tends to go in. But
Mr. Constant?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Zolotow.
So then would it make sense, or is it feasible to just amend the section addressing the new project, the storage facility and the lending piece as an amendment, short term, wait a month for the other piece?
I
know that's
guess
kinda
it
weird.
goes to the chair, you know, how you perceive the master plan. You know, it really is just kind of giving you an idea of both where they're going and everything that they're considering along the way. But at the same time, you know, I think like I said earlier, I don't think every time we do a little bit more work on waste to energy, we have to go back and update the master plan. Because the master plan says waste to energy is an idea that we're examining, but every piece that we bring forward to you, you get to approve, look
But
at, and
I
approve.
think though that the difference that is being discussed here is that the project that's hopefully landing in 30 days isn't just another small update, it's a fundamental update, and it would change the character and color of the whole master plan if all of a sudden we're intending to drive down the road of a $300 million investment or whatever those numbers end up being. And so to Ms. Zolotow's point, that's a fundamental shift, and so it doesn't make sense in some ways to adopt a master plan that's based on information that's going to fundamentally change in 30 days. But then you're saying, but we have this issue about construction relative to how we access capital for it. That's a small thing, right? And so that is the question I have is, can we just adopt something that addresses that need while we get to the inflection point? The major question of, are we going to proceed down the $300,000 yellow brick road?
Well,
Or $300 million.
if I can,
Sorry.
if I can,
Sorry.
through the chair, yeah, that makes total sense to me from my perspective. That we just wait until after we have the next meeting in March to discuss the feasibility study and get a response about how does the body want SWS to move forward. So that totally makes sense to me. And I'm okay with waiting. And I think it's a matter of, like, if you want to take out the waste to energy piece and just approve this temporary one, well, does it make sense to go through the effort of preparing all the assembly documents, or can we just truly just wait another month and get it all done at once we have that decision?
And so I put myself in the queue.
Okay, sorry.
Because no, thank you. That's very helpful. And I have a question on the AO in front of us. It's actually Section 6 at the bottom where it says future modifications to the ISWP shall be incorporated upon approval and authorization by the municipal manager. I wasn't sure how to read that, if that is a change, and if, how it fits into what we're talking about, where to put the WTE.
Yeah, and I have to punt on that question. I don't have an answer to that response right now.
Okay. Mr. Gates, did you have an answer to that? Do you know?
Yes, actually, I was concerned about number 6. It's very broadly worded, like individual modifications can be done without assembly approval. So I think what you were really intending here is improved master plan and implemented by the sole manager, right, and the SWS, rather than future modifications to the plan. I mean, like the universe just were mentioning a $200 million change. I think what to come back, or at least I get the impression that some members want to come back for this summer. So I think want to modify the ruling of 6 that matches maybe your intents and doesn't go too far.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's something we need to discuss then.
Thank you, Mr. Gates, and we can circle back to that one and the timing of changes and everything. If you want to, one more question, Mr. Brown?
Well, it's just a timing issue as well. So if we are waiting until March 20th, and then we have to do some kind of action that's relative to a finding or a decision point that comes out of the waste energy feasibility study, we just have to be cognizant. We don't want to push that too far out. We don't want to get into April and May. So I just want everyone to recognize that when we get to the end of the month, we should be as effective as possible to incorporate our thoughts, as you said, get it in advance so we can understand where we're going. And then when the whole thing can land hopefully in March. You know, that's the hope, I think.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Constant. Ms. Zalatel?
So this is for Mr. Slifka. So if we do push this process, is there anything then needed so that the building can go forward, or?
I think I would defer to Mr. Spafford, but I believe, you know, that where he is in that construction phase relative to the money that's going to be spent, a month delay is not going to impact our cash flow.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Zalatel. Okay, Mr. Guys, go ahead and continue.
Oh, that's the end.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from members? Or on the documents, I actually have a question about the master plan, and the attachment with the agenda includes 6 pages or so of it. And section 5, I believe, or part 5, is where the changes are.
Okay.
I think. And I was just wondering if you could go over which sections, or maybe I'm jumping ahead. We can come back to that piece later as well. I was just looking for where the changes were from the existing plan to the revisions.
So there might maybe for the next round we should include those studies that I thought those were included. That was my
Oh, no worries. Okay, does anyone else have questions or comments? We'll be coming back to this.
Is the full, previously approved master plan on the West website?
Yes.
So the intent is to come back next month in this committee or
Mr. Dunbar,
work session.
I'm sorry, say again?
the question is, should we hold a 2-hour work session, or I think there's the budget committee that's after this one that we would have to delay, or it bumps into the economic development committee. I don't know if that one's scheduled for the 24th. Is it the 19th? The EC.
Yeah, you have CEC, enterprise, and budget on March 19th.
So we don't really have the time to flex on that day and time. So either we need a work session or to have a special meeting of this committee. And we need to pick a time as soon as possible for travel arrangements to be made. So
So the intention would be to, if we did a work session, would the work session have to be 2 hours? Would it be something else in the enterprise committee meeting, or because we're not going to split it between 2 days, right?
it would probably be in lieu of.
Yeah.
There is a CE meeting scheduled then. Yeah, we'll just do a work session on that Friday.
Which Friday?
Friday the 20th.
Zalto.
And Ms. Zalatil?
I would prefer, if it's possible, if we could do it on Friday the 13th. The reason being is we then have the meeting on the 24th. I'm a little concerned of doing it within that 4-day span. If there's follow-up, if there are additional questions, and if we could maybe even then hold the Enterprise and Utilities Committee meeting to follow up on those, if those answers aren't available
Good
on
call.
the spot, because we do get into that situation
No,
from
that's
time
great.
to time.
If that's the case, why don't we do, there's nothing on that Thursday or Friday right now. Why is, what's that?
We'll make it work,
Well,
whatever.
no, so
whatever
my
works
point
for
is we
the-
could do a special meeting of the Utilities Committee on that Thursday the 12th, it's 2 hours, and then we potentially, because there's nothing on that Thursday right now, and there's nothing on that Friday.
Do you need
Oh,
any
there is? I don't know.
flexibility
It's not
with
on my
scheduling
calendar
your
yet.
consultant?
No, I'll tell them that that's when they need to be here, so.
Okay.
So, I mean, are you open now? We can do it on Thursday, March 12th?
Yeah, that works.
We'll make it work.
Okay.
Yeah, and it'll be a special.
11 to 1.
Utility Committee. Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever
And,
you guys said.
and then we will keep the regular meeting
Yep.
scheduled for any potential follow-up.
Yep. That's smart
Okay.
thinking.
And then for this AO, which is in front of us on Tuesday, the intent is, just so I understand correctly, to postpone it, the whole thing, okay, and not separate any part. Mr. Gates?
Do you want to continue with the public hearing? Because it's a public hearing item, rather than close the public hearing and postpone.
Does anyone have a preference on opening? I believe it's a new item, right? So we'll be opening the public hearing and then just continuing it to March. I mean, that seems to be what we've been doing with a lot of these. That would be my preference. Okay. So so then, Mr. Dunbar, if you're amenable as chair to opening the public hearing on this item with the intention that would be carrying it over to the meeting in March. Okay. Any other comments or questions on the item or presentation? You guys are getting off easy. It's only 11:30.
This time.
This time, yeah. Great. Okay, so thank you very much,
Okay.
all of you, for
Thank
being
you.
here and for the presentation. Number 4, committee legislative and budget priorities. In terms of previous legislative priorities for this committee, we've focused really only on the court, but Mr. Constant and I were talking and we're not ready to move into any further discussion on these items. That you're
I don't have at this time anything concrete, other than there is potential for a GO bond to be issued in relationship to the court. But that is something that is in shorter time than we can do anything about in this committee. And so it may or may not happen.
comments or questions on those items? Okay, so we will revisit those items in the future. That brings us to number 5, audience participation. Mr. Haberman?
I'll be very brief. Continue to have, my name is Eugene Carl Haberman, live in Pasco Valley. For 40 years, Alaska resident, 20 of those years, Anchorage resident. We continue to have a policy of difference. The public that come to this meeting, that's when we see what's on the agenda. It's not published, materials, papers. It happened today at the previous assembly meeting earlier today, same old thing. Keeping the public line. Wonder why the public's not here. It's more likely that they have no clue if they have to win the lottery and say, well, it's an issue that I'm interested in, because they come here and say, hey, I'm interested in that. But that's not the way to go. And then I'll close with this. I did take a look at the agenda for Tuesday night's meeting. What I see on that agenda doesn't surprise me. You continue a policy, putting in the beginning of the agenda on items where you don't have any place for public comment. Resolutions, one particular, go into the legislature, and without any public comment. I suspect when the press takes a look at that particular one, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but you don't connect with the people. And that's the way to go. With all due respect, at least in the Matthew Borough Assembly, when they have what we call a consent agenda, all list items, there's audience participation before that. So you keep on pushing on, and you say, you've been elected to office, we have a right to do it, but you're not asking the public if they endorse what you're saying to the state legislation. So for those who have not taken a look at the Assembly agenda for Tuesday night meetings, you might want to take a look at that, because there's resolutions saying endorsing certain bills, and I suspect there's going to be a lot of outcry for you independently saying, voting on it or discussing it without hearing from the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haberman. Mr. Slivka?
Yeah, so I just wanted to give an update. For those that are aware, there was a mini trial in relation to Fort Bend, San Francisco on Tuesday and Wednesday. And the one point of question was circled around was there really a contract between the court and Marriott. This mini trial was in relation to possibly a full trial. It appears that the outcome of that trial was probably going to be favorable to the court in that there was a real question about whether we had a contract with Marriott Municipality did go back to our memorandum of understanding in 2003. So the court should rule on that hearing hopefully within a month. The judge's comments were all seem to be very positive in favor. So that might get the ball rolling for getting the government interested in settlement with us. That's still a big unknown. The other thing I would share is we received today an update from Standard & Poor's on the rating for MLP debt. Obviously, MLP debt is about to go away, but it retained its A+ rating. And we also had a meeting with S&P while we were in San Francisco in regards to the upcoming tax anticipation note that also I think here. So just want that update for our other meeting.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Slivka. Are there any other announcements or members of the public who wish to speak?
One last thing. This is
Mr.
for,
Constant.
8 days from decision today.
Yeah, so hopefully.
On the
MLP.
Oh, on MLP. Got it. Okay. Well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.